What is up everyone, Ethan here from the Pixel Era Productions, and welcome to a brand new video series, and one that I am very excited for. Today we're going to be taking a look at Skyrim Special Edition, and I'm going to be bringing to you in this series as many unique Skyrim modded character builds as I possibly can. So without further ado, let's go and look at the first build. The Stormlord is your quintessential Nord. His crushing battle axe is feared by any and all, and his voice thunders like the sky itself. He can call the storm from above, as well as summon its wrath from his very palms, sending crackling lightning at his enemies with shocking destructive force. Shocking? Thank you, I'm here all night. His dedication to the liberation of Skyrim is unmatched, even perhaps by Ulfric Stormcloak himself. This chosen of Talos defeats all foes that stand in the way of his brothers and sisters in arms in their quest for the freedom of Skyrim. The Stormlord is a proud Nord of Skyrim, which will give him a nice boost to blocking, smithing, and heavy armor, all of which will be useful for the playthrough. Despite that you already have the boosts to your skills from being a Nord, you're going to want to take the Warrior Standing Stone or the Lover Standing Stone to level up your character's skills in early game. Another option to consider in earlier game is the Steed Stone. Afterwards, however, the Atronach Stone is optimal. That Magicka regen debuff is well worth the Magicka resistance, which will help you against all those pesky mages. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the backstory of the Stormlord. Born in the 174th year of the 4th Era in Skyrim, the Stormlord's parents were staunch supporters of the rising political figure Ulfric Stormcloak. His parents had been religious worshippers of Talos, and held him in high regard. They were therefore enraged at the cowardice of the Imperials as they signed the White Gold Concordat into effect, ending the Great War. When he was very young, too young to remember, the tensions were very high in Markarth after the Forsworn had taken the Reach and the Stormlord's father joined Ulfric Stormcloak's militia to retake the city. If they were successful, Markarth would allow the worship of Talos in its hold, something that Ulfric had been very heavily campaigning for. Ulfric lost a fair amount of good men, though not nearly as many as the Forsworn did, and the Stormlord's father was one of those men. He fought bravely for what he believed in, but died in the attempt. And so the Stormlord was raised with his mother in Winterhold. His mother would often tell him stories of his father, which he always was eager to hear. He had heard the story of his father's battle and the story of Ulfric Stormcloak rehashed perhaps 1,000 times. He looked up to the two men whom he had never met, and wanted nothing more than to become a strong warrior like they were. The Stormlord grew up with a few of his friends, and they all posed as warriors during their games. The young Nord loved the thrill of battles like these, even if they were only pretend. He and his friends would always play as companions, the mighty warriors of Jorrvaskr. He also grew up in the shadow of the prestigious College of Winterhold. His friends all held it in some disdain and fear, but it fascinated the Stormlord. If a warrior were to possess impeccable skill with weapons and magic, he reasoned, well, that man would be the most powerful in Skyrim, and perhaps all of Tamriel. Thus was the aspiration of the Stormlord as he matured, and while his other friends lost their visions of becoming a warrior to maturity, the Stormlord retained his own. This decision was most affected by the death of his father, or rather the manner in which he died. The Stormlord was now old enough to form his own thoughts and opinions on things, but he was sure that if his father were alive, he would only want his son to continue to fight to free the people of Skyrim, and this was something the Stormlord wanted for himself and his country more than anything else. The Stormlord and his mother were staunch worshippers of Talos, and they secretly kept a Talos shrine in their home which they prayed to every night. It wasn't that he disagreed with the practice, but it made the Stormlord uneasy for his mother's sake. He had heard of the so-called Thalmor Justiciars who patrolled Skyrim. They jailed and sometimes killed Nords for the mere possession of a Talos amulet. When the Stormlord was in his late teens, he confided in his mother his real aspirations to join the Stormcloaks as a warrior. He worried his mother would forbade it, in fear that he would meet a similar fate to that of his father, but to his great surprise, his mother meekly nodded and accepted the news. She told him that she knew this day would come, and that she fully supported his decision. How could they, in good conscience, sit back and watch as their kinsmen fought and died for their freedom, while they would sit on their backsides and enjoy the fruits of their labors when the war was won? No, she knew her son would not rest easy in Skyrim's current situation. The Stormlord was surprised at his mother's staunch support of his ideas and decisions, but he was very grateful for it. For a week, he researched which weapon he would use and finally decided on the battle axe. It was powerful but faster than a warhammer, the weapon of a true Nord. He practiced with it endlessly. For upwards of 3 months he did this, building up the muscle to efficiently wield such a massive weapon. A local beggar, Gulknir the Unmentioned, as the kids in the city had nicknamed him, had taken notice of the Stormlord's constant practice and approached him. He asked whether or not he was planning on joining the Stormcloaks. Of course, the beggar already knew the answer to this. There was very little about the goings-on in town that the local beggar didn't know about. Cautiously, the Stormlord nodded in answer, and the beggar smiled at the young man. Gulknir had been a soldier himself in the Markarth incident, and had fought alongside the Stormlord's father. He told the Stormlord that he had some skill with a battle axe. The Stormlord was very skeptical about this claim, and the beggar smiled at this skepticism. He was very sympathetic to the Stormcloak cause, but he was getting a little old to be joining the fight himself. He thought the least he could do would be to train the next generation of freedom fighters, and so he offered to train the Stormlord. Thinking it rude to decline, the Stormlord hesitantly agreed that they could practice together for the day. He asked Gulknir what he could do, proffering his battle axe. The beggar took it in one hand as if it weighed next to nothing, and gripped it with a familiar firmness that the Stormlord had never seen before. Gulknir approached the dummy that he had been practicing on and executed a rapid series of complicated strokes with frightening speed and accuracy. The Stormlord stared in awe at the man who he had never thought of as a warrior. He told the beggar this, and that he would be very grateful if he would teach him. And so it was that for the next 2 years, Gulknir trained the Stormlord in the ways of his weapon. The former beggar observed that the young man he was training was a natural. He picked up concepts quite quickly and was extremely coachable. This was perhaps due to the Stormlord's dedication to the cause he would soon join. When he was 20, there was no more that Gulknir could teach him. The Stormlord had surpassed Gulknir in skill, and besides, Gulknir thought privately, he was getting a bit old for this sort of thing. He advised the Stormlord to seek out more professional training, perhaps with the companions of Jorvaskr and Whiterun. So the Stormlord, promising to return to Gulknir and his mother, sets off to Whiterun to learn more about the warrior's craft. When he reaches Whiterun, he hears rumors of an attack on Helgen, and worse, a rumor that Ulfric Stormcloak has been executed. He rides to Helgen and discovers the disaster there. From there, he will ride to Riverwood to rest on his way back to Whiterun, discovering that Ulfric Stormcloak had escaped. When the villagers hear of the dragon, they will implore him to warn the Jarl of Whiterun. Stormlord will do so, and thus is drawn into the first part of the main questline. He will learn of his destiny as Dragonborn and his potential to become master of the Way of the Voice. Instead of learning more with his weapon, the Stormlord chooses to study with the Greybeards, learning more about many shouts. When he is assigned his final test with the Greybeards, the Stormlord will instead ride to Winterhold to check on his mother and former teacher before heading to Ustengrav, and tell them all that happened to him since. However, when he arrives in Winterhold, he learns that a group of Thalmor Justiciars have swept the city and discovered his mother's Talos Shrine. Gulknir has died defending his mother from the Thalmor, and she has been taken and thrown in prison. The Stormlord's grief quickly transforms into raw fury and hatred for the Empire. After searching high and low for his mother and failing to find any leads, he will ride to Whiterun and join the Stormcloaks, leaving the Greybeards behind for the moment. He knows that, if they had their way, he would not interfere with the civil war at all, and instead talk to the sky or whatever it is they do up in High Hrothgar. The Stormlord is very angry about the Greybeards' pacifistic nature. He will complete the civil war questline, searching for his mother along the way, and using the power of his Thuum against the Empire. Once the peace is secured in Skyrim, he will return to his original goal of learning the way of the Thuum, and eventually discover Alduin the World Eater and complete the questline to defeat him. So now that we know a bit about the Stormlord's backstory, let's take a look at how exactly that's going to affect the in-game role-playing for your character. As in the backstory, he will discover the tragedy at Helgen and begin the Alduin the World Eater questline, learning shouts with the Greybeard. You can roleplay his return to Winterhold and his discovery of his mother's death, and after that go to the Civil War questline, head to Windhelm to join the Stormcloak cause that the Stormlord has always supported. The Stormlord will go on to complete the Alduin the World Eater questline, killing Alduin in Sovngarde. With Alduin out of the way, the Stormlord will go on to seek a position in the companions of Jorrvaskr to improve his skill in battle and to defend the Stormcloak cause from pockets of resisting Imperials. He will then choose to pursue his childhood dream of becoming a battle mage and therefore complete the College of Winterhold questline. Dawnguard and Dragonborn DLCs are completely optional, but are definitely viable if you wish to do them. Now that we know a bit about your character's background and how he's going to act in the game, let's take a look at how that's going to affect your actual playstyle in battle. Keep in mind that all the skills listed for the build here will be using the Ordinator perk overhaul mod for Skyrim, the link to which can be found in the description below. The Stormlord will be using a few skills throughout your playthrough. The primary skills for this build will be Smithing, Two-Handed, Heavy Armor, Destruction, and Block, with a secondary skill of Enchanting. Any true Nord knows how to keep his armor and weapons in tip-top shape, and the Stormlord is no exception. Therefore, you will take the smithing tree in order to make sure that your armor and weapons are functioning to their full potential. You will take smithing mastery as well as arcane blacksmith. Then you will take the far left branch all the way up to exotic smithing, so that is Muric smithing, expert smithing, and exotic smithing. Once you get to exotic smithing, you will take the crystalline smithing option, which will allow you to upgrade ebony armor, which is the armor type that the Stormlord is going to use. All of these perks will make sure you're maximizing the effectiveness of your armor and weapons in battle. Two-Handed will be one of the Stormlord's most fundamental skills, as it will determine how deftly he uses his battle axe in combat. For this tree, you'll want to take the far left branch from Two-Handed Mastery up to Trained Fighter, then Death or Glory, and all the way up to Wolfkin. Then you're going to want to take the branch having to do with the Battle Axe all the way up as far as you can, taking the perks Bleed Like a Dog, Rive, Execute, Decimate, Bisect, Ram's Head, and Slayer of 1,000 Suns. This will make sure that your combat skills remain in tip-top shape. Heavy Armor is another of those truly fundamental skills, as it determines how much damage you're going to take while swinging around that massive battle axe of yours. From the Heavy Armor tree, you're going to want to take Heavy Armor Mastery as well as Cushioned. Then you're going to want to take most of the right side of the tree, taking Heavy Armor Fit, Rallying Standard, Never Kneel, Out of the Inferno, Immortal, Defiance, Face of Death, Bedrock, Revel in Battle, and Lead the Tempest. All these perks are going to ensure that you're taking the least damage possible while taking the most effective perks as well. When it comes to block, there's no need to invest too many perks into this particular tree, as you're not going to be using a shield at all. In fact, the only reason you're taking anything from the block tree is so that you can optimize the effectiveness of your shield bashing with your battle axe. So you're going to want to take Block Mastery and the far left branch, Power Bash, and Skull Rattler. With Ordinator perk overhaul, the Destruction tree is so unique and fun, and you're going to be putting a lot of perk points into this particular tree. You're going to want to take Destruction Mastery and Destruction Dual Casting to its left. You're also going to want to take Force of Nature and Elemental Specialization. When you get to Elemental Specialization, make sure you choose the specialization in the Shock School of Magic. Then you're going to want to take the Shock branch all the way up as far as you can. That means you'll be taking the perks Ionized Path, Static Field, Arc Burn, Nova Charge, Magnetize, Electro-Convulsions, Show Them All, Storm Blast, and Absolute Power. Runecaster is also a viable option depending on how much you use runes in combat. And lastly, we come to Enchanting. For this particular build, you're not going to need to invest too many perk points, just enough to get some decently powerful enchantments behind your weapons and armor. Therefore, you'll be taking Enchanting Mastery, and Gem Dust is optional. With all those perks invested in the Destruction tree, obviously Destruction spells are going to be a large part of your playthrough. You're going to want to take any and all shock spells you possibly can. These shock spells include Sparks, Lightning, Chain Lightning, Thunderbolt, Lightning Rune, Lightning Cloak, Wall of Storms, and Lightning Storm. All of those are really fun and effective to use in combat. Shouts are also going to play a large role in the Stormlord's combat. Any shouts are really viable, just for the fact that he's the Dragonborn, he can do whatever freaking shouts he darn well pleases, but here are some of the ones that I think fit best with combat style. Stormcall, Cyclone, Whirlwind, Sprint, Elemental Fury, Clear Skies, Call of Valor, Slow Time, Unrelenting Force, Become Ethereal, and Disarm. With all that combat stuff out of the way, we only have a few more things left to go over for this build. The first thing we're going to touch on is followers and mounts. Followers are not absolutely necessary, but can be fun and helpful. Onmund from the College of Winterhold is a good option, as well as anyone from the Stormcloaks. Companions can also make good followers. As for marriage, the Stormlord can marry pretty much any Nord, for example Mule the Lioness. He will use the Ebony Armored Horse as a mount from the new Armored Horses mod, which will be linked in the description below. This horse really fits the aesthetic of the Stormlord and is really fun to have around, as you can summon him whenever you need. The Summon Ebony Armored Horse spell tome can be purchased from Farengar's Secret Fire in Dragon's Reach. When it comes to housing, the best option is Hiram in Windhelm. This will make sure that you have a nice base of operations, and you're pretty close to Ulfric Stormcloak and Galmar Stonefist, both of which will play large roles in your playthrough during the Civil War questline. The Hearthfire TNF mod for Hiram is completely optional, but it makes Hiram look really amazing, and I would highly recommend it if you have some extra space in your load order. Finally, as for armor and weapons, he will use the Stormlord armor, found at the link in the description below. The Stormlord armor can be obtained in your playthrough in one of two ways. Firstly, you can unlock ebony smithing and just make it in the blacksmith forge. Another option is to find the chest in Hiram. This can be done from either buying Hiram or finding the chest during the Butcher questline. As for a weapon, he will use any battle axe up until the point where he gets to the Companion's questline. Then he will use Wuthrod, the legendary battle axe of Ysgramor. So that covers absolutely everything you'll need to know for the Stormlord build. All the mods for this build, both required and optional, are listed in the description below, as well as links to their respective Bethesda.net pages. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy, please don't forget to leave a thumbs up. And if you have any suggestions, make sure you leave those in the comments below. I'd love to hear your feedback. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been the Stormlord. I've been Ethan from Pixel Era Productions, and I will see you in another video.